Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing a week 2 vlog for Marie B School. If this is your first time here, my name is Dr. Norma Reyes and I'm a career and life coach. Alright guys, so I just am wrapping up week 2. I don't like to say that I'm finished because I found out that in week 2, which is I guess working on our website, it has 4 lessons, which week 1 had 6 lessons. I always forget, but I found myself going back a lot to week 1 and kind of finishing up little things that I kind of left. Some of them were to go in and asking people what your strengths were, and then kind of compiling those and reviewing them, seeing what your strengths are, what your passions are, and then combining those together, and then seeing what story you can create from that, your unique story, right? Because everyone has a unique story. And, I found myself kind of feeling tethered about it. I felt like I was making progress. Yeah, this is my story. But then when I was trying to verbalize that and share that, so you can have a 1-minute elevator speech, right? And then a 3-minute speech, and then a 5 to 8-minute speech. And not really a speech, but your story. What are you trying to sell? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to change in the world? And of course, it's well, duh, I want to change the world, duh. And not really that, it was just really hard to, aside from getting it out of my head, but also trying to verbalize it. It was really, really hard. So then what I did yesterday was well, maybe I'll just do a video, not one that I'm going to post, but one that I can just use it as okay, what's my story? What made me want to move in this direction versus any type of other career? What made me want to be a career coach, a life coach? And I really love career counseling. Career counseling's always been a passion of mine, and I think careers and lives are very intertwined, and really that's really what I think is my pull on this. When I took career counseling class in my master's, it was my favorite class, right? And looking at the different approaches, and then I came across plan happenstance theory, and that's what my research is on my dissertation. And it was that's really it. That's my passion. And another big thing about it is that research in general in the academic world, especially when it comes to Latinos and probably all other populations, it's very focused on all the obstacles and the barriers. And for myself, I'm well, I don't want to focus on that, because I feel everyone has obstacles, everyone has barriers. It doesn't matter where you came from, it doesn't matter if you're the richest person in the world, you still have obstacles and barriers to fulfilling your purpose and your passion. And it's really easy to think well, you have all the money in the world, what worries do you have? Well, we don't understand that world, and neither is it our place to understand it. Our place is here where we are in our own world, and our own struggles may even seem trivial to someone else. How is that a struggle? So yeah, I totally went on a tangent. And so anyway, I was really going back and forth and figuring out what my story was, and really taking the time I did some meditation, but really just doing thinking. And it's funny because as I've mentioned before, or if I haven't mentioned, I've mentioned in my other videos, is that not only do I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of different books at one time, which a lot of people are probably like, well, how can you do that? And in the past, I don't think I've ever tried that before, but in the last 6 months, I've just been bouncing in between books. And so this is one that I've been reading lately. It's called How Successful People Think. And so it's by John C. Maxwell, one of my favorite writers, and leadership type writing. And so in that, he talks about, a thinking spot and having a place to go and do your thinking. And so, of course, I'm trying to do my B school materials. And then, of course, COVID-19 is going on, so shit hit the fan with everybody just losing their mind, including myself. And so I had to blog about that. I disconnected from social media. And I mean, it wasn't like a full on like, oh my God, I shut down my social media, but just really taking some time apart from social media, not feeding into the hysteria, and trying to find a way to, add my own like calmness. So I made some like phone, some little phone things, like, what are they called? Wallpaper thingies. And I shared that on my social media because, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And I used to think that was dumb to say, but, really, if you're not trying to help, that one thing that I did might have helped one person, and then they could have helped one person. And if we all help each other, even just a little bit, it multiplies and multiplies. And so back to the B school and how that's going. So at first I was like, oh yes, I want to completely redo my website. Then I was like, well, let's take a step back and see, like, I want to jump in at this, but I want to do it right. I want to build it well, and I want to see what it is that I want to do. So I haven't done the last lesson, which I think is like literally like a paper sheet of like how to build your website, but not in that sense of like, not the technical sense, but more what do you want to put in it. And I haven't even gotten there, so I haven't looked at it because I've been really trying to focus on getting my story clear. Who is my ICA, which is the ideal customer avatar, and then who am I as the person who wants to start this business, and what is my business purpose. And I've really been trying to get really, really clear on that. And I feel like I don't want to move forward to starting something that really it's just going to be done in a rush because I'm excited to do it. I'm really trying to take my time. And the book, How Successful People Think, talks about writing down all your ideas. And sometimes I'm really good at writing down my ideas, but then going back to them and fleshing out my ideas, I think is something that I can work and improve on. And I'm barely in the beginning of the book, like, I don't know, maybe a quarter done. And so maybe less than that. Gosh, I have to like dividing it really doesn't matter. No. But anyway, so back to the ideas and really having a consistent way of reviewing my ideas, because sometimes I'll write them down. I use a couple of different mediums, and so I'm going to need to go back and figure out what I want to do in that regard, because I have my bullet journal and I do bullet journaling on there, and then I do some notes on my phone, and mostly because my son is 7 months and so he's still breastfeeding. And I still take advantage of that time. Either I read and then I copy some quotes from the books that I read on my phone, and because it's just so much easier to read on the Kindle app on my phone versus trying to do it on and then trying to take notes. So it's just easier. So I'll do that. And then my bullet journal, I try to make sure I'm using it every day in like a planner and then also as a journal. But because I don't have very many pages on my bullet journal right now, I am also journaling on a different journal. So it's kind of like a little bit scattered, but I think once I develop a system, and that's really what it sounds like, you just got to develop a system. So if you are working on building a business or even just trying to get your life more organized, develop a system that works for you and then just stick with it. Now, if it needs to change, it needs to change, but give it 30 days or give it 7 days or give it 14 days, something that works for you to figure out, like, how long will it take for you to figure out whether something's right for you or not. And really, I feel like with the B School, for me, like, I love it because it has given me, I like things to be concise and clear. I don't like them to be lengthy. It's like, I'm a big get to the point. And so, that's what I love about it. She does, so the format is, she'll give us a lesson, she has a video, and then she has the fun sheets that she has, which she calls them fun sheets. That's kind of cute, which is the worksheets to do with them. And so in those, they're not like super long. I mean, some of them are a little bit longer than others, but it's mostly the content itself is pretty concise. It's just a lot of content for that lesson, whatever the lesson would be. And especially the stories one, we all have a story, very unique, and not just a story, like 100,000 stories. Every time I think about a story, it completely unfolds. And so I decided to do the vlog today, which is Sunday, because I was working on my business story, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I trying to say? What's one of my stories for my ICA to connect with me? And I started thinking about being a first generation American. And so I'll share a little bit about that and what I posted. And I was thinking, there's first generation American guilt, and it's, so I posted, it was like, raise your hand if you are first generation American, raise your hand if you're the first in your family to be successful, raise your hand if your family expects you to do everything for them or to be available all the time. And then the last one was like, raise your hand if you've been called selfish for going towards your goals, whatever your goals are, academically or with your profession. And, I left it at that. And then I just talked about, like, we have to teach our families to be... we have to teach our families to fish. Basically, we have to teach our families to do for themselves, so that we can be able to focus on ourselves and our goals and our passions. And, it's taken me quite a long time to get here to this place. And even now, I still feel that guilt, and not so much with my parents or my extended family anymore, but with my own family, and working on, that balance between my professional, my business, and my personal goals, and then also being there for my family. But overcoming that challenge of what, I'm just going to call first generation American, first gen guilt, has really helped me develop and grow and be able to focus on myself, even when it comes to my family and their needs, etc. So, if you're finding yourself having to or feeling guilty for not being there enough for whether it be your family, friends, anybody, then take that time to see where that's coming from. That would be my recommendation. It would be my recommendation for anyone. Write down all those things that you feel that you should do, but you're really not really that interested in doing, but you're doing because you feel like you have to. Evaluate, was this a conscious choice or an unconscious choice? And I'm not going to go into too much there because it just go into a big thing. But just think about the two things, like, is it a conscious choice that you've made? And then from there decide, is this a choice that you want to continue doing? Or is this a choice that no longer serves you or no longer is healthy for you? And then, feel and process those feelings and then decide what you want to do next. For example, let's say so for myself, when I was, I don't know, for as long as I can remember, I don't know what my parents did before, but I would help them make sure that they got their bills paid. They obviously were the ones making the money, but I would help my mom with making sure she paid her credit card or whatever payment she had to do, whether it was online or in person. And I dated someone at that time, and I was like 18, and he's like, why do you do all this stuff for your parents? And of course he wasn't Mexican, so he didn't understand that part, and just really questioned a lot of the stuff that I did. And to me it was like, well, you just don't understand. My parents need me to do XYZ. My parents need me. My parents need me. And so maybe at a time it was serving me in regards of like feeling needed by my parents, feeling needed by someone. Eventually, though, I did let that go, let my parents be able to take care of their bills. I mean, before I was able to assist them in that, they obviously were doing it by themselves. They didn't need me to do that for them. But somewhere along the way, they handed me that responsibility, and I took it. And then both my parents and myself, we created that interdependence or codependence on paying the bills. But really, they were doing it before. And yes, they had language barriers, but they had those before. A lot of the forms are in Spanish. So really, who's enabling who here? Were they just kind of giving it to me so they didn't have to stress out about it? Was I taking over because of XYZ? It's a lot. So anyway, I never questioned it, and then someone did in my life, and it made me, I guess, reevaluate why I was doing some things, especially because when I was in college, I was away. It was an hour away. Technology wasn't what it was now, and so it would be a lot for me to have to come home. It would be a lot for me to stop what I'm doing in school, studying courses or whatever, and just going and focusing and helping my parents. And so it really took a lot of that to finally, decide that I was going to let that go. And it was okay. And I mean, it's okay. It's been years, and I'm not helping my parents with paying their bills anymore. And I mean, if I was, and if you are, really think about what it is that you're doing it and why, what for. I mean, if parents really need you, I'm not saying not to be there for them. But yeah, my parents obviously have been able to move on and grow and not depend on me for all these things. So I feel like I've gone off on a sidetrack, but this is essentially what's been going on with my B school and how much it's really in depth if you let it. I mean, if you follow it and you really take the time to think and try not to rush through it, because I definitely want to rush through it because I want to get there. But that is all. This is all part of starting a business, and if you want a great, well-established business, then you need to take the time to work at it. Take the time to invest in it and put in all the details. And then go from there. You can't just, if you're going to rush through it, then it's going to be shitty and it may not survive, or you might have to come back and do all this groundwork again after, however long has passed. And I'd rather do it now than, a couple of years down the line when things aren't working, or give up later because things aren't working, which would be even worse. So, really that's like my lesson that I keep repeating each time, is to just take my time to think and not just be filling in the boxes and working on really establishing myself and what my business what I want to do with my business, and what my ICA is, and going from there. I'm trying to wrap this up, but I feel still like it's just everywhere. But I'm starting my business. When you're starting up, of course, things are a little muddy. Eventually, it'll get clearer. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments or anything, just leave me a comment below. Send me an email. Follow me on any of my social media. Send me a question. Would love to answer any questions. Have a great day.